My name is Tan. I'm a student at the University of Mary Washington, and I prefer Z and Zero pronouns. I'm responding to the question, should same-sex marriage be the top priority of the LGBT civil rights movement? And my answer is yes, it should be the top priority of the LGBT movement. The legalization of same-sex marriage would accomplish a series of things for the LGBT community, and it requires the greatest amount of attention from the movement at the moment. First off, same-sex marriage would bring with it literally hundreds of rights for gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender individuals. In fact, marriage grants about 300 to 400 rights to married couples, and that's from states alone. On the federal level, married couples receive about 1,000 individual rights. With marriage, couples are given rights concerning adoption of children, healthcare coverage, property ownership, hospital visitation, and funeral arrangements in the case of death, among many, many others. The fact that marriage can grant LGBT people over 1,000 different rights is that non-LGBT people already have makes this an extremely pressing issue for the community. Same-sex marriage may be grouped as one issue, but it's literally hundreds of smaller issues that can all be resolved with one illegal act. Apart from rights, same-sex marriage also promotes a positive and family-oriented image of LGBT people, which makes them more relatable to non-LGBT people and normalizes queer identities. Families are highly valued in American society, and by expanding the definition of family to include queer identities, people will begin to see that queer is normal and will thus allow the LGBT community to pursue other important issues. Also, marriage is necessary as the symbol of the LGBT movement because it challenges a huge cultural norm, which has the effect of generating controversy. And this may seem to be a bad thing at first, but in fact this controversy puts a spotlight on the LGBT movement and creates much needed discussion of LGBT issues. So the fight for same-sex marriage is about getting equal marriage rights, but it also strongly promotes visibility and education about the LGBT community. Because of this, movement for marriage equality has gained enormous momentum, and that fact is visible. In 1996, a poll conducted by Gallup indicated that only 32% of Americans, not even a third of the American population, supported same-sex marriage. Now, 15 years later, another poll by Gallup reported that 53% of Americans now support same-sex marriage. Even since last year, that number has increased. Last year, the number was 44%. So since 2010, there has been almost a 10% increase in number of Americans supporting same-sex marriage. So clearly, the image of a queer family is permeating public opinion and working in favor of LGBT people. Public opinion is changing very rapidly and in a positive way. Same-sex marriage could be realized within a few years if the movement continues at this rate. To switch focus of the movement when the LGBT community is so close to gaining significant rights could potentially hinder the movement and in fact divide it, which would cause it to lose its momentum, which is acting so positively for the community right now. So same-sex marriage needs to be at the forefront of the movement. It is an issue which will benefit all LGBT people and grant them hundreds of individual rights, and once it succeeds, will shape the path of the LGBT movement for years to come.